Hello, my name is Aaron Hebner, and I will be doing the presentation on visual impairments. A visual impairment is defined by the IDEA law of 2004 as an impairment in vision that, even with a correction, adversely affects a child's educational performance. Most people think of vision impairment as simply blindness, but it includes many other forms of impediments in vision that affects learning as well. Background. Visual impairments are very common in U.S. schools today. It is estimated that nearly 1.5 million students suffer from vision difficulty. Vision difficulty is defined as a serious difficulty seeing while wearing glasses or even those that are blind. The statistic does not include those that can wear corrective lenses and see with normal vision. 42,000 students in the U.S. are considered to have severe vision impairment, meaning they cannot see words and letters in normal ordinary newsprint. And nearly 62,000 students in schools are considered legally blind. This is a very widespread issue and one that is very common. Visual impairments defined. Visual impairment is an umbrella term that generally describes the consequence of an eye condition or disorder. Vision impairment happens when the parts of an eye or the functions of the brain that communicate the processes of the vision do not work as they should. The anatomy of the eye. As you can see in the picture, the eye is a complex organ that has many parts and intricate processes. All of these parts must function for normal visual acuity to occur. When just one of these processes does not function fully, a visual impairment can occur. It's important to note that any one of these functions, whether an example of the cornea, the pupil, the lens, the optic nerve, or even the retina, whatever the condition, whatever part of the eye, all of them can cause different visual impairments and can have an impact on a student's learning. Types of common visual impairments. Nearsightedness and farsightedness are by far the most common forms of visual impairment. Other common diseases or conditions associated with visual impairments include strabismus, where the eyes look in different directions and do not focus simultaneously on a single point. Congenital cataracts, where the lens of the eye is cloudy. Retinopathy of prematurity. It occurs in premature babies when the light-sensitive retina has not fully developed before birth. Retinitis pigmentosa. It's a rare genetic disease that slowly destroys the retina. Coloboma, where a portion of the structure of the eye is actually missing, such as on the optic nerve. Optic nerve hypoplasia, which is caused by underdeveloped fibers in the optic nerve and which affects depth perception, sensitivity to light, and acuity of vision. Cortical visual impairment, caused by damage to a portion of the eye related to vision, not the eye itself. And one that many people are familiar with, amblyopia, which is lazy eye. It's important to note that these conditions children can be born with and can also happen as an occurrence of an accident or something happening after birth. Legally blind. Blindness means more than just a child not being able to see anything. The term legally blind, children may in fact see light, shapes, colors, and objects indistinctly. Any residual vision that a child has can aid in their learning, and teachers should learn how to use and implement strategies that take advantage of any residual vision that a child has. Common signs of visual impairment. Eyes don't move together when following an object or face. Crossed eyes, eyes that turn out or in, eyes that flutter from side to side or up or down, or eyes that do not seem to focus. Eyes that bulge, dance, or bounce in rapid rhythmic movements. Pupils that are unequal in size or that appear white instead of black. Or if a student has repeated shutting or covering of one eye, that can be an example of lazy eye, for instance. Common signs of visual impairment continued. If a student shows an unusual degree of clumsiness, such as frequent bumping into things or knocking things over. If a child shows frequent squinting, blinking, eye rubbing, or face crunching, especially when there's no bright light present. Sitting too close to the TV or holding toys and books too close to the face. Avoiding tasks and activities that require good vision. Any teacher or parent noticing these signs should refer the student to see a specialist immediately. Early detection and treatment of eye diseases is critical for children's development, academically and socially and physically. Why is vision so important? Vision is one of our five senses. It gives us the opportunity to more fully see the world around us. In learning, it allows us to see the whole picture, not just fragments of it. It allows us to see people's faces and the expressions that they use. We get to see objects up close, to see the incredible details of a butterfly's wings or the majesty of a panoramic view of a snow-covered mountain. For those of us with excellent visual acuity, imagine not being able to see these marks of beauty in God's creation. Now imagine being a student that cannot read the text of a book or see the magician doing tricks at a school assembly because of visual impairments. To understand how personal the role of visual impairments is to me, I wanted to share my story a little bit. I have worn corrective lenses, either in the form of glasses or contacts, for over 30 years, starting way back in first grade. My eyes and prescription lenses have gotten progressively worse each year since. My diagnosis started with nearsightedness, which is, as earlier noted, very common, and progressed to an astigmatism, which is an irregular coning shape of the cornea. About 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with a condition now known as keratoconus. In the picture in this slide is a picture of me in Little League when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And you can see that I'm wearing a sports uniform and I have Coke bottles for glasses. I say that in jest, but it really was a very impactful part of my youth, was having to wear glasses for everything. My story continued. I wore glasses for everything all day. I had to wear sports goggles or contacts when playing sports. I was an active kid that was constantly damaging my glasses, which is, if you speak to my mom, that was a very expensive thing, was to keep replacing glasses for me. I wasn't really made fun of for wearing glasses, thankfully, but wearing them was definitely not an advantage, and glasses were not in vogue then as they are now. Wearing glasses affected everything I did, including playing sports and learning in school. The picture of the NBA player on the right side of the slide is of Horace Grant. Many of you around the age of 40 may remember him as a member of the Chicago Bulls championship teams in the 1990s with Michael Jordan. He was a personal hero of mine because of his sports goggles. He was known as a role player that continually matched his glasses to his team uniform. So his glass color always matched his uniform. And as a kid, I just thought that was really cool and I wanted to share that. A little bit about keratoconus. Keratoconus is a progressive eye disease where the tissue of the cornea gradually thins and takes an irregular shape. The disease is often genetically related, as it often occurs to more than one member of a family. In fact, I have a first cousin on my father's side that has also been diagnosed with this condition. The occurrence rates vary widely depending on population and genetic factors, but it is estimated that keratoconus occurs in about 0.05% of the population in the United States. Common symptoms include distorted vision, eye rubbing, light sensitivity, especially at night, continual red or irritated eyes, and very irregular nearsightedness or astigmatism. Common treatment of keratoconus includes progressive lens changes in your prescription, graduating to soft contacts, and then eventually moving to rigid gas-permeable contacts when the cornea is so out of shape that the soft contacts will no longer fit. This is the stage that I am in now. Eventually, I will need surgery, including up to a cornea transplant at some point. My cousin has had 2 cornea transplants, as the first one did not go as planned. I will eventually need surgery to fix my cornea. It is only a matter of when and how, but not if. My story. I share my story because my keratoconus affects me to this day. It affected me as a child in my learning environment and my active lifestyle, but it continues to do so today. And that's why I share my stories, because visual impairment in learning is something that is very personal to me. I am still unable to read a text without my contacts unless I'm holding it up right against my face. I must take my contacts out nightly for cleansing of the contacts and to let my eyes rest after wearing them all day. At night, and especially in the morning, my vision is incredibly compromised without my contacts. I inserted this picture to kind of give an idea of what it's like to be me, both at night after taking my contacts to go to bed and when I wake up in the morning to make it to the bathroom to put my contacts in. It's dark, it's blurry, and it affects everything around me. Visual impairments and learning challenges. Children can learn and do well in the general education classroom, but they lack the visual learning component that sighted children normally have. Challenges include moving about safely in classroom and hallway, operating common educational tools like calculators and computers, reading, and conceptualizing objects. What can a teacher do? Teachers need to be aware of signs and symptoms of their visual impairment in their students. Teachers should refer students for professional assessment if any signs are present at all. Under the IDEA Act of 2004, all students are eligible for screening for visual impairments free of charge to the student or the family. The key here, as with most of these conditions and special education aspects of these children that we've learned about, is that early detection and treatment to bring about the best result in learning for the student. Strategies to help students with visual impairments. Classroom setup, sensory learning, modifying instruction, and assistive technology. Classroom setup. Classrooms should be welcoming and free of obstructions with wide, straight walkways and little clutter. A teacher can lay out furniture in a way that is conducive to learning. In Wisconsin, your local CESA district has resource teachers available to help for teachers to design their furniture and classroom layout. This picture is taken from a website on the Foundation for the Blind, and it kind of shows some of the concepts of straight rows, no clutter, and very free of any obstructions that would hinder a visually impaired student from getting about the classroom. Sensory learning. Sensory learning is a powerful strategy to teach children with visual impairments. Students are taught to heighten their other senses to give a more complete learning picture. Hands are the biggest tool for these children to learn. Until they hold, grasp, and examine an object with their hands, it is nearly impossible for them to learn what is being taught. They must begin with the details and work up to the whole that a student with normal vision would be able to see from the start. Other senses are engaged in sensory learning as well. An example would be a teacher that engages smell by stating, doesn't that smell amazing?" when something is brought in the class that is like a baked good or something from the cafeteria. Or when a teacher says, "Listen to that bird sing, it's a robin." This engages hearing, and that student can make the connection between that bird's song and the type of bird that it is. In the picture on the right, the student is touching and feeling and grasping an object to better get a full picture of what it means to describe that object. Sensory learning is a very powerful tool for learning with students with visual impairments. Modifying instruction. Teachers can modify instruction to better meet the needs of visually impaired students. Examples: allowing adequate time for students to complete work, using descriptive language to engage students, such as the doesn't that smell amazing from the last slide, using a variety of materials for learning, including large print text and audiobooks, encouraging the use of word processing software, and this one I found interesting too, was to avoid glossy whiteboards as they produce glare and can hinder any visual acuity that the student may have. Lastly, assistive technology, screen readers and magnifiers for computers and tablets for reading and writing, video magnifiers, and for those that are progressive down to legally blind, the braille watches and printers. And there's also iPad apps available for assistive technology. A list of these can be found on the American Foundation for the Blind website. I have a link in the slide here. Visual impairments are conditions or disorders that affect the eyes and impairs the student's ability to learn detrimentally. Visual impairments are very common, and early detection and treatment are necessary to help students' learning. Teachers should be aware of common signs and symptoms of visual impairment and refer students for professional evaluation that exhibit them. Teachers should work with resource and special education teachers to manage their classroom setup, learn how to incorporate sensory learning into their classroom, how to modify instruction to help their visually impaired students, and how to best make use of assistive technology with their students. Thank you for listening to my presentation.